when they look into the crystal ball of different networks. I don't know if any one. I mean, that sounds a little bit like a question about we're in an American high school, and then there's the table or that lunch of the jocks, and then the nerds, and then the popular kids. And I don't really think that any network is particularly like that. Um, but certainly, when we were founding our events, we knew that we wanted to be inclusive of gender. We wanted to be inclusive of everybody. We wanted to run games which were narrative rich. We wanted to run games which were as accessible and as inclusive of as many different types of people as possible. We knew that we wanted to maintain the price of make it as low as possible for everyone. Um, uh, what other networks bring to the table? I don't know. You'd probably have to ask them.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right, okay. So what have we got next? So yeah, more questions into the chat if you can. That would be great. So we'll kind of go from one from me. So what design is next from you then, Seumas? You've done Kingdom of Seasons, which I desperately want you to run again. But what design is next for you?
So next, the game that I have in mind for next year is actually a dystopian sports league. Strangely enough, and I've actually already been working with Kanna Clausen, who is again just the most amazing artist, creating some concepts for what this might look like. I really love, I love these dystopian worlds where there is something which keeps the population at bay. I'm thinking of our Hunger Games, where the Hunger Games itself is this tool which somehow manages to keep all of society in check by magic or whatever. And I think a mega game is a wonderful forum to allow that happen. My imagining is that a lot of the players in the game would be taking on the roles as the head of various teams within a dystopian sports league. But there would be a whole group of other players also competing in the game, whose primary function is to keep a population in check. Everyone is a bad guy. Everyone is involved in maintaining a horrendous, awful dystopian order, and winning the game, winning the sport, isn't as important as maintaining social order. That's my concept anyway, but I want to make sure that, and this is, I guess, comes back to your question about death, but this is slightly different. I want to the game needs to be fun. Losing your sports match needs to
Yes.
be fun, because that's critical to what I envision in the game. Because sometimes, in order to maintain cohesion and to make sure that your dystopian secret overlords are happy, sometimes your team would need to lose in order to prevent rioting in some part of the solar system or whatever. So yeah, so that's my basic concept: a dystopian, probably vaguely cyberpunk, um, rollerball inspired game of some
Yeah,
sort.
because when people talk about this type of thing, it's not Hunger Games I actually think of. It's Rollerball, it's Running Man, it's
Mm,
Death Race. I mean, I think it might even be like Tenth Victim. There's kind of loads of them out there that kind of evoke more of that for Hunger Games. Maybe that's just because I like so much
sure.
of the '80s more.
Well,
Arena,
fair.
Arena.
Exactly.
Who can't forget Arena with the crazy cyborg kind of Minotaur style man.
But rather than playing one of the plucky heroes who's going to bring down the social order, you're in fact one of the bad guys trying to prop it up. And that's where I think the sort of fun of the game will come in. I
Yeah,
hope.
and I don't think there's anything Meg gamers will love more than playing the bad guy. Not that any of us like playing the bad guy at all. Okie dokie. So you kind of spoken quite a bit about kind of where one of the goals for Two Enough Mega Games was to be kind of as inclusive as possible. You kind of mentioned being a kind of feminist network right at the beginning.
Mhm.
So And we talk about it in the hobby endlessly about how to get more diversity so games aren't 95% stale white dudes like me and you. So, how exactly does True North Games try and do do that? It's good to have the ethos, but what kind of things would you say that you're doing try and do that?
So on issues of equality and inclusivity, I think, although obviously I've spoken about it over this interview and in the past, I think obviously my voice is not the one that should be the loudest
Yeah.
in any kind of conversation of this of this nature, of course, because of course I am, as you say, a stale white dude. So obviously my voice should be in the background of any kind of discussion of this. But in True North, I don't know. Like I think there are a couple of things that we've done, which I think have been very helpful. I think number one is obviously representation in terms of, you know, I mean, the artwork. Let's just go back to the artwork for Kingdom of Seasons. I knew from minute one that I wanted the representation of this world to be very gender inclusive, to be very inclusive of all types, to be inclusive in general, you know, to be, so it wasn't just a bunch of white male knights charging at a bunch of green male orcs, you know, as so many fantasy tropes follow, so pattern of so many fantasy stories follow. I wanted representation of various different peoples throughout the different factions. But more than that, I wanted a good number of the positions with the most initial opportunity for direct impact to the game to be female. So often within games, particularly historical games or historical fantasy games, a lot of the most powerful positions, your kings and your emperors and your gods, end up being cast to men. And you know, I thought that particularly with a fantasy game, there was absolutely, I mean, there is no reason to follow that trope, I think, at all. But within a fantasy game, there is a great opportunity to, in fact, do the opposite. So, of course, we had the goddesses being both female identifying players. We had a number of the most significant and powerful starting players in starting positions to be cast as female. And I think making those kind of changes, understanding the demographic of the game, understanding the way that most games operate, the way most mega games are staffed, as it were, with players, is important. I think that's essential. You know, in True North, you know, I would hope as a hobby as a whole, we've reached a point where overt acts of sexism, for example, would be stopped directly. I would hope anyway. I'm sure they do still happen, my God, but I would hope that in most cases overt acts of sexism would be shut down immediately in play. But it's still all too common where we hear people discussing games as if there are some types of games which are just more for men somehow, some genres of game or some ways of playing which are just considered to be only for men or predominantly for men. And I find that just wrong. I find it nonsensical, and I find it worse. I find it insidious, and I find it dangerous. And so in True North, we start with the position that there is no such thing as a genre or a mechanic or a type of play or a type of game which is inherently masculine, feminine, other, non-binary. You know, because it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it makes any sense to the other people who are on the steering committee. And I think once you decide that, once you realize that, then I think it opens up possibilities just within yourself to take a closer look at the assumptions which are being made perhaps by some people in the community about who is going to be playing a particular game and who a particular game is for. You know, yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's not an equivalent example, but if there was a type of game, a type of genre which was understood to be just for English people, and Scottish people wouldn't, they don't really like that kind of game. You know, even if I did like that kind of game, I would be strongly disincentivized from turning up and playing it. You know, and that is the case with particularly gender, where we have certain types of game which are just assumed to be favored by men and not favored by women. And to me, that just doesn't make any sense. And I think that if you start in that position, then you're always going to be tackling inequality with both hands tied behind your back. You're going to be doing more harm than good. And I think setting out from the get-go, assuming that all types of game are for everyone,
Okay.
then
So
you're going to make a positive change, I hope.
no, I agree with that, and I suppose a word I say that if anyone in the chat ever comes across overt sexism coming your way in a game, please tell
Yeah.
control. Don't suffer in silence. I understand it can be difficult to kind of go up and say this person has done this, but please do. From everyone who controls games wants everyone to have a good time. I think Seamus is 100% right that as a community, people don't want that type of activity anywhere near their games.
And so, I mean, just to sort of finish on that, I don't know if we are going to be speaking about this in the game over this AMA, but of course, True North is going to be hosting a design symposium. If I can plug this, Matthew, if you
Yeah,
don't
of
mind,
course, go for it.
on the 30th of May, we're going to be hosting a design symposium on the 30th of May, and as part of that, we are opening up an open forum just for female and non-binary identifying megagamers, so that we can begin to, I don't know, to actively start to hear these voices, to hear voices which to help us overcome this issue, to help us tackle this inequality more directly. So it isn't two stale white dudes talking
Yep.
to each other over a camera about how
Yep.
we think we should tackle inequality and sexism and all the rest of it. Yeah. So we are opening up a forum. I strongly encourage all female and non-binary identifying mega gamers to come along to participate, to share their experiences, to share solutions or initiatives which have been taken by their networks, which have been effective in rebalancing participation. By sharing these initiatives and these ideas across networks, we can hopefully begin to tackle this problem across the entire hobby, across the entire community, because I believe it's a problem across networks globally. I don't think this is something which is unique to the United Kingdom or any one network. I think this is something that all of us need to be actively working on. So I strongly encourage, that is the kind of forum where the loudest voices should be heard, I think, on this issue. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing to hearing back from that forum about, just the sort of a general report. Hopefully we can learn a lot from it and really build new initiatives and structures and solutions into our networks, which can really begin to tackle this problem head on directly.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So from the chat, Outreach, I've only ever seen one Stargate and a mega game didn't even get built. Well, I'm building a Stargate mega game at the moment, Outreach. So I share your desire for more Stargates. From Syntax, I'm a new mega game designer who's yet to run my own design yet. I'm focused on the sci-fi genre as it's my favourite. I've run a couple of Denner Walls games and love Denner Walls. Is there any type of sci-fi that you would like to see in mega games that are currently not in the current offerings?
What's not in the current offerings? Do you know what we don't have a lot of? I don't, does this count as sci-fi? I suppose it does. Is steampunk? Curiously enough, we don't have that many games within the genre of steampunk. I think, anyway. Maybe I'm missing something, but I can't think of any games. Matthew, can you recently which focused on steampunk, this sort of Victorian thing?
There are games that have had steampunk elements, like City of Shadows, that Brian Cameron ran a while back, but that was more like a 30s, 40s America with kind of steampunk and scientific trappings rather than a steampunk game.
Mm.
No, I can't really think for it. We haven't, to my knowledge, we haven't. There's Jim Wallman's new Watch the Skies, which is like a late 1800s game, but
Hmm.
I don't know how much of a steampunk element there will be in that. But generally, in terms of sci-fi settings, I don't think we've had anything other than modern esque sci-fi. Really, well, by modern esque sci-fi, I'm turning that wrong. I mean, kind of sci-fi where you're a couple hundred years in the future,
Yeah,
or you've got
exactly.
just things like Mirror Shades, which are a pulp. Um, Dreams of
What I want,
Empires, I've been told. Dreams of Empires
okay,
was steampunky, but
fair enough.
that's one game in like the last 5 years.
Yeah, fair enough. I want something which really leans into all the fun and all the joy that steampunk brings. I want excellent costume opportunities, if you please.
Yep.
I want weird signs. I want zeppelins. I want really just. This is the thing, I guess maybe I'm just not a very subtle person. When I sat down to write Kingdom of Seasons, I wanted something which was just a high fantasy romp. I want a high steampunk romp. I want to wear a monocle and pilot a zeppelin. That's what I want. I want something which is just unambiguously fun, something which isn't gritty. Something which isn't gritty, something which isn't grim, something which isn't which doesn't secretly have this underlying whatever. I don't really want Dishonored type steampunk. I want something
Okay.
which is, glorious. I want glorious steampunk. That's what I'm looking for me.
I'd agree with that, though. Though if the only offering is Dishonored, I'd definitely play a Dishonored steampunk game as well. So don't
True.
let that put you off designing anything, anyway.
How about this, Matthew? The Dishonored style one can be the sequel after the initial world has been established, and then it falls into decay. How about that?
Yeah, you mean after you and I and Chris have got hold of it and we've just trashed it?
Ruined it for
Yeah.
everyone. Exactly that. Yes, indeed.
Okay. What have we got here? We got a few more. So Syntax saying something based on the Honoverse, which I believe is kind of like a military sci-fi setting. What would you think, Seamus? How about addressing some more RTS elements in a sci-fi mega game? That's a very interesting one.
RTA, you mean
Real-time
real-time
strategy.
strategy?
Yeah.
Um, I am not the right person to speak to about real-time strategy games, video games, I would say. What do you mean by addressing issues of RTS? I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Adding more RTS elements into a sci-fi mega game.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I'm not sure how to do it either, but it's an interesting question. How do you add possibly just players having to be more reactive to each other over their 15-minute turn?
Well, the thing is, I mean, if you really want to experiment with the formula and you really want to build in RTS elements into a game, then you get rid of turns and you handle the movement of, say, troops on a map differently. You limit movement around the room, and you limit movement of, say, troops around a map in a way which doesn't require set turns somehow. Now, whether that be you move a unit and then you turn an egg timer on top of it and it can't move again until the egg timer's ran out or something of that nature, I don't know. But I think if you really want to lean into a real-time strategy type game, then I don't know how you would necessarily square that with set turns, personally.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's interesting.
now, I'm not suggesting that it would work. I'm just suggesting that it would be fun to try.
And so I think the only thing there to do at Syntax is playtest. I'm a big fan
Absolutely.
of playtests. I love doing playtests. Designing my own game at the moment, I've got more out of the 3 playtests I've done and the 3 or 4 or 5 hours that they've taken up than I have any amount of hours of me trying to sit at a computer screen and trying to logic stuff out. I'm just not very very good at it. But I think playtests are just something the hobby needs absolutely 1000% more of. So absolutely, just throw it together. Do we have okay, one from Outreach. How would you which is going back to our questions about kind of equality earlier, how would you stereotype a super hard operational game and give it a true north spin?
Well, the thing is that
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is kind of what I was saying about, um, you need to begin by just rejecting the idea that any type, any gender would have a preference for super hard operational
I'm going to
games. I
jump
mean,
in slightly there because there is just a there is even outside of Mega Games there's a demographic. So let's put to the side a second that I absolutely agree with you that when you're marketing a Mega Game, you should go at it from the point of view that you want everyone to feel equally inclined to turn up to it. That doesn't stop the reality of being that there is an existing demographic outside of Mega Games as well. You can't separate the two things entirely.
no, it's true. It's true. And at the end of the day, with a cultural phenomenon like Mega Games, the chances of us pushing back on hundreds, thousands of years of patriarchal bullshit is going to be an uphill struggle, Matthew. I'll tell you that. Um, for a hobby in ourselves, no, absolutely. But look, at bare minimum, I think we need to be ensuring that all of our players are feminists. I think all of our players need to be identifying as feminist to a start, just for a bare minimum. And I think if your player base is has people in it who struggle with that, then I think ultimately you need to be understanding where that kind of issue is coming from, and how that might be preventing people joining in certain types of game. Now, look, I don't have a straightforward answer as to how to de-stereotype super hard operational military games, and I would be astonished if anyone did. But I also think that there are too many people in our community who don't see it as a problem that super hard operational military games are for men. And I think so long as we have people within the community who don't consider it a problem, who don't consider it a priority to be de-stereotyping these spaces, so long as those folk exist, then the problem is going to persist no matter what, really.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, that in itself would be an excellent start. Just understanding people who still hold these beliefs that women don't like tanks, which is just nonsense. I mean, it's just perplexing to me. Have you met women who mega game? They love tanks.
Basically, everyone loves driving a tank over people.
Everyone loves
It's
driving a tank. I mean, not in real life. In
not
a
in real
fantasy,
life. Yeah.
safe, that it's fun. This is the thing, is that, and that, like, at the end of the day, it's somehow expected that women are, oh yeah, women enjoy riding dragons into battle and setting fire to an entire city, but women don't enjoy riding a tank into battle and setting fire to an entire city. And for some reason, because tanks are made of metal, I don't know, phallic imagery. I don't know what the foundation of this is, but it certainly continues to be prevalent. And so long as we have a core or a hardcore group of gamers within the community who don't see it as an issue that these stereotypes persist, I think the stereotypes will persist.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to start.
Yeah, and I think with something that we need to work on, I think quite a lot of industries need to work on, is basically if you're going to run a game that looks like an operational military game and that you instantly go, okay, the demographic of that is mostly male, then there are elements in that operational military game that will appeal to everyone, and there's going to be logistics in there. There will be driving tanks over people. There will be running teams, which people love to do, just the basic problem solving stuff. And I think it's the job of designers and people marketing games to basically point out that those elements are in their game. Don't let it just sit going, this is an operational military game. Tell people what's in there, because everyone, no matter kind of how you identify, is going to like elements in there. It's about peeling away the stereotype and getting to those people who aren't the typical demographic to go, there are things in here you're going to enjoy, basically. And that's what we need to do. The demographics and standard stereotypes don't do anyone any good for anything, basically.
Yeah.
So I agree with Seumas entirely. Okie dokie. So let's begin to wrap up. But are there any more questions in here before I let Seamus go? Um, Becky belongs. You got anything? You're normally good for a question. Becky's saying that she, if she got a chance to drive a tank in real life, she'd totally go for it. Can't drive a car, but I'd feel safer in a tank. I think that's probably true.
I
Becky.
I'll be somewhere else that day. Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know when that is. Okie dokie. Let's see. Any questions you want, Becky? No matter. Just crack on with a question. But while anyone is thinking, not just Becky, who I put on the spot, but anyone who has questions, pop it in. But where can people find out about True North Mega Games and what you guys love to do, James?
Well, so I mean, we have a lovely and active Facebook community, True North Mega Games community. Please join that group. We also have a Discord. If you prefer not to be on Facebook, which is totally fine, just join again the True North Discord. You can easily search for it. But actually, what I would encourage people to do is please turn up to our symposium that we're holding on the 30th of May. We've got some wonderful speakers, some wonderful papers being presented by some real, including actually Becky Ladley is going to be one of the people who's going to be presenting a paper at our symposium. The others being Jim Wallman, Kieran O'Sullivan, and then a joint paper from Johan Olofsson and Nicholas Lindblad, coming over from Gothenburg Megagames. They're going to be presenting papers around the theme of Megagames in the future. So I'm sure some of the questions that have been asked for me are gonna come up also within that. So if you are interested in hearing the perspectives of these great designers, please come along, come and join us on the 30th. Join on our Discord, join the conversation, share your opinions, and hopefully we all come away learning something. We all build on the experiences, on our shared experiences. But yeah, so yeah, come and join us on Facebook and come and join us in Scotland in the north of England. Come and play one of our games. We'd love to have you.
I definitely go play the games. I'm normally there most of the time for some bizarre reason. Okay, I've put the link to the symposium into the chat as well. So if anyone
Thank you.
hasn't seen that, go along with. So two questions left. Someone from Bean 2. Do you often travel far for mega games, or do you stay close?
The technically the furthest I've ever travelled for a mega game was from Ethiopia to Leeds, but I did happen to be coming back from Ethiopia that day. It wasn't, I just happened to be travelling back that day. But yeah, so I mean, certainly I started playing mega games in 2016, so I had to travel, certainly 3 or 4 hours in order to play a game. And I would just turn it into a weekend away, spend a couple of nights, a night or two in Manchester or Leeds or London and just enjoy those cities. So, yeah, certainly initially I certainly would always travel for a mega game. But that's probably the furthest I've been. A normal distance would be down to London is the furthest I've done. I'd love to go over and play one in Sweden. There are the games which are run by Gothenburg especially just look from the pictures they look wonderful. I think they have a wonderful community over there. I'd love to head over at some point and play over there.
Yeah, I'd recommend that for you and for everyone. So a few of us went over last year, and they've got some absolutely beautiful venues that they use as well. There's one that Johan found which was free, which was a library over 2 tiers, and you had a council sitting around this giant hall looking down on everyone with headphones, true
Yeah,
UN style, which was magnificent.
looks awesome.
Yeah. But in terms of people who travelled furthest for Mega Games, I think that honour goes to Nice of the Mega Game Assembly, who did something like 30,000 kilometres in 1 year.
Absolutely.
So Nice is crazy. I think she narrowly edged me out by like 1,000 kilometres. It was terrible, just because she happens to live somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Cheating, that is, Matthew. Is cheating.
Cheating, it is. How dare people not live in London? Okay, last question from Becky Box then. Okay, let's go with what do you think is going to change most about mega games given the coronavirus pandemic? Online games, social distance mega games, etc., or any surprising changes that we might not have considered yet?
I think apps. I think building apps into games is going to become increasingly common to the extent that I think it will become perhaps not the norm, but I think it will be just another mechanic. You know, it won't. It'll be as surprising as turning up a game and seeing a map. You know, oh look, it's another map. Add a mega game. Oof. Um, and I think I think apps are going to increasingly going to become a regular feature of games. Some part of the game will be handled automatically, remotely, whether it be resource calculation or something. Some aspect will become apps, and I think our experiences of playing online games while social distancing, I think that's really going to push us to innovate in that direction, and I think that's a silver lining of this pandemic for mega gamers is that it's pushing people to innovate in startling and really interesting and wonderful ways, which I think is something. Yeah, I think that's going to change.
Yeah, I think you're entirely right. Okie dokie. So, being to Matt, are we able to watch previous interviews? Yes, you are. So, if you go to the videos tab of Twitch, the last couple of weeks there, I will this week be putting all of them up on YouTube as well. So they will be there for people to have a look at. So please do that. This is where I ask people from the bottom of my heart again to like, subscribe, follow the channel, pop over to Facebook, and I'm there. There's Mr Megagame on YouTube at the moment with a couple of things there, so pop over to that. I'm streaming three times more this week. So I'm doing Pandemic with Baker Baker Blogs and Chris and Harrison of We Love the Internet Mega Game Assembly tomorrow. And then on Saturday, it's the Horus Heresy inspired playtest. So come join me for that. And then on Sunday, I believe I'm doing another playtest by John Misen for a kind of heist mega game. So normally every Tuesday and Wednesday, but there's more stuff going on this weekend, so come and join me. Yeah, follow, like, subscribe me and Seumas over at True North Mega Games. So thank you very much, everyone, as always, for joining us. Have a good weekend, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.